Now do you want to talk about the Day of the Doctor?
Yes, now I do.
I'm Tom Dickinson.
And I'm Louis Midas.
And this is the Cloister Room,
a podcast about Doctor Who and other things.
What did you think about the Day of the Doctor?
I loved it.
Huh.
Yeah.
I thought it was terrible.
Did you really?
No, not at all.
Oh.
But it was wonderful.
You had me going for a second there.
Well, I'm kind of disappointed that you loved it, because I thought this episode would be much more interesting if you hated it.
It probably would. And I really wish I could be that person.
Because I was figuring, well, Louis isn't as versed in the classic series as I am, so he might be more invested in the concept of New Who and the Russell T Davies era. So he might be mad that the Doctor's destroying Gallifrey, which is sort of a foundational part of the Russell T Davies era, has been overwritten. So he might not like that, so maybe he'll hate the episode because of it, and maybe we'll have a much more interesting discussion as a result of that. But now that didn't even bother you a little bit?
Well, no, not really. I mean, no, to be honest, I thought it was kind of getting a little old.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I'm actually kind of a big fan of not genocide.
Yeah, it's always good. It's always good to try and do the opposite of genocide, if you can manage it.
Yep.
I know that's something we all struggle with in our daily lives.
Yeah, there's a segment of fandom that does hate this episode because it undermines something.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I have a really bad and unhealthy habit of seeking out negative reactions to things that I love and just making myself really angry about other people's feelings about things.
I am not completely unfamiliar with that.
So, I spend a lot of time on Tumblr, and I do a lot of Doctor Who stuff on Tumblr. And there's a big slice of Tumblr that just hates everything to do with Stephen Moffat and has decided in advance that everything Stephen Moffat does is a thing that it's going to be angry about. So I have spent a little bit of time browsing the Moffat hate tag.
There's a Moffat hate tag.
Oh, there's a tag for almost any topic that you can imagine. And Moffat hate is a very vibrant tag that, sometimes I'll read that tag and I'll say, that's a kind of a good point that this person has. This complaint about Stephen Moffat's writing is a good complaint. This complaint, that is kind of a sexist thing that Stephen Moffat said in that interview. I can see why someone would be very, very upset about that. But I spent, the entire time, I spent quite a while over the past couple days reading the Moffat hate tag and saying, that's not a fair criticism at all. This doesn't make any sense. No, you completely ignored the line of dialogue where he says this, that, And obviously, it doesn't really, really bother me that other people have a different opinion from what I do.
Right,
I just am working myself up.
No, I understand that completely. Yeah, I actually haven't really done much. I sort of glanced at the Reddit thread devoted to the Day of the Doctor, but I haven't really done too much.
Was that in our Doctor Who or our Gallifrey?
Oh, our Gallifrey.
Oh, good.
No, I don't go to our Doctor Who.
Thank God.
But yeah. So I haven't really done a whole lot, and actually most of what I read there was positive, I think.
Most of what I have read everywhere except the Moffat hate tag has been overwhelmingly positive, and I haven't heard a single negative thing outside of that.
Okay.
And yet I went seek out the Moffat hate tag just to get me angry, get myself angry. It's like, yeah, it's so masochistic of me. I don't know. I have this morbid fascination though with there's something that I love, and the more I love it, the more I want to hear someone really ferociously and intelligently take it down.
Well,
just so I can feel better than their intelligent criticism of it. Like, no, I have an even more intelligent defense of it. I think that must be it.
That's not terribly unreasonable, because you don't know. Because, I mean, it could be that you are looking at it from only one perspective, and you just happen to think that you're right, and maybe you aren't right. So it's, I would actually say that that's not a terrible thing to want to just, like, get like a peer review to make sure that, your love is in fact valid and, is actually, sensible. That you have sensible love. I think
sensible love.
Yes.
That's my upcoming album with the hit single "Peer Review My Love." Yeah, I can totally I mean, so far in our discussion, we've been talking about this for a couple minutes, and the only thing that's been mentioned so far is the undestruction of Gallifrey. But like, I can totally understand why some people might not like that, because if they are very invested in the notion of the Doctor having done this horrible thing and now having to live with it, I can get why they feel like this diminishes the character arc of the 9th and 10th Doctors. But I personally think it makes their character arcs a lot better, because now, instead of it being a character arc of like how they move on from genocide, it's now a character arc about like how they move toward this awesome moment where they manage to avert a genocide. Right.
Yeah, that's actually pretty interesting. That it's because it's kind of like don't knock it till you try it. The Doctor tried genocide. Now he knows for a fact he hates it, and so now he's going to try and go back and it's interesting because it kind of really like drives him to try and correct that one point in time. And given an opportunity to do that, of course he would. And I think he's even stated that on multiple occasions. I think he stated it in this episode.
There's that moment in this episode where it looks like they're about to do it again. They all put their hands on the button and do it again.
Right.
And I don't know about you, but in that moment, I wasn't saying anything, but I was mentally screaming, "Don't do it! Don't do it!" I just wanted him not to do it, and I was like, "Is Stephen Moffat going to undo this? Is he really?" And I just didn't know it was going to happen, and it was so tense.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that was well, right, because I don't know, something about that kind of, like when they were sort of walking over and putting their hands on the big red button, it kind of almost felt wrong. They can't just sit idly by or stand idly by, or not even idly. They can't actively help push this button. That's crazy. Yeah. So I like that they at the last minute realized that there was another way out, and they could not commit genocide. Yeah. I like
this is kind of Moffat ripping off himself. Because like the whole plot of Series 6 is you thought I died, but I didn't actually die because I figured out a way to make it look like I died by using this giant me, a tiny me in a giant me suit. Whereas with this, I figured out a way to make everyone think I committed genocide by using this is actually really clever, and I love this, by using the plot hole from the classic series where how come the Doctors don't remember things from multi-Doctor adventures, which is never explained, and is kind of hand-waved away, but here it makes an integral part of the plot.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was clever, even if it is a little bit recycled from Series 6.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because it's that was something that had sort of, I don't know, not necessarily bothered me, but something I wondered about, like in the Five Doctors or any other multi-Doctor story, like why they didn't remember it. So I did like that they kind of explained that, and I liked how that actually did turn out to be part of the plot, and that was kind of neat. But yeah, I like it was recycled, but I didn't mind it being recycled. Yeah, I can't dislike that though. Like I can't dislike them undoing this, because it's, it's not, but I guess, I like, what I like is that they've undone it, but they have still preserved that continuity where, like, that's still part of the Doctor's past, where he thought he had committed genocide, and that's still something he struggled with for a very long time. And so, that's basically all preserved, and I like that, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, and it's not only preserved, it's completely, it's important. Like,
yeah,
everything that's happened since then leads up to this.
Right. Yeah, and that's very cool.
I think that's kind of something that Doctor Who just does. Like 6 years into the show, they said, "Hey, by the way, this guy is a Time Lord. He's an alien. You might have thought he was some kind of human." From maybe from the future or something, but no, everything we thought we knew was wrong. He's a Time Lord. And then, in Neil Gaiman's first episode that he wrote, The Doctor's Wife, it's like, by the way, you thought you knew what was going on with the TARDIS and the Doctor, but here's this entire other dimension that you knew nothing about. And I feel like that's just something that you can definitely do in Doctor Who, and you can just rewrite broad sections of the continuity, and it's cool.
Yeah.
So what better way to celebrate Doctor Who's 50th anniversary than by completely messing up existing canon?
Yeah, there you
Without
go.
actually messing up existing canon.
Right. That's that's kind of a cool thing, is that, they've just sort of, not retconned, but they have managed to preserve everything that came before and still change things up.
And apparently provided a new direction.
Yeah, right, because it sounds like Trenzalor's coming up, and so they're going to need something to do after Trenzalore.
And so that's going to be, I guess, the quest for Gallifrey.
I guess so. Yeah, so that's kind of neat. I think it was bound to happen eventually that Gallifrey was going to come back for real.
Yeah. I think if it wasn't Stephen Moffat, it was going to be someone else who did this.
Yeah.
It might have been 2 years from now. It might have been 20 years from now. There was a moment at the end of the Russell T Davies era where I was wondering whether it was going to be during the end of time.
Right.
And it just happened to happen now. And I think this is the best way for it to happen, in my opinion, because I kind of like the idea. I mean, I like the idea of the Doctor having to cope with the fact that he committed genocide. I like that character stuff. But I also kind of prefer the idea of him not actually having committed genocide. Because that's something I would like to think that the Doctor would never do. Well,
right. Because, and the Doctor tends to always, find some way out. It's not always perfect, but he generally finds some other way. And, he's pretty reliable to do that, to find some non-violent means of saving the day. And so it's, and it makes sense that he'd be upset for failing to do that in such a massive way, with the Time War. But I do prefer to think of the Doctor as being kind of always able to sort of choose the non-violent path and find some way to save everyone, or if not everyone, almost everyone.
Yeah. It just took him a while this time.
Yeah, it just took him hundreds and hundreds of years to think about that and figure out a different way.
Yeah, this kind of felt to me like the finale of New Who.
Yeah. It kind of, because it does. It kind of wraps up that arc, and it kind of makes everything we've seen from 2005 onward to be this kind of closed circuit where we started off with a bunch of threads, and those have now been sort of tied up, and now we can go do something else.
On to the next thing.
Exactly, and I kind of like that.
I just thought that overall this was a ridiculously fun episode.
It really was.
And I was kind of expecting it to be emotionally heavy. And it got there for a while. It did a little bit, but it ultimately went in. It was just such a happy thing. Like John Hurt was a lot less dark and like dark and serious than I was expecting.
Well, right.
Yeah.
Well, especially with how the Night of the Doctor built him up. It seemed like he was going to be this like, badass war doctor, and I don't know, and it was kind of funny in the opening scene because I was like, oh yeah, that he's going to be this badass because he's using a gun, but he's using a gun to shoot 2 words into a wall, and then he just drops the gun and then uses the TARDIS to like ram into some Daleks, but and that seemed kind of badass. But then from downhill, then from there it kind of went downhill a little bit, and he wasn't he was much more like the Doctor that I sort of expected him to be, or just what I expect the Doctor to be, I guess. And that's not a bad thing. It was just not really what I was expecting, and not really what it had been built up in my mind to be. Which I mean, I guess I don't know.
I said before that I was going to be kind of disappointed if the Doctor's shameful secret was just this guy who did the thing that we already knew he did. It's
Right.
just he has a different face.
Right.
And, well, so I should be disappointed right now.
Right.
But I'm not, because I feel like they handled it really well, where they sort of kind of explained it that, like, well, it's the 10th Doctor is the one who regrets and the 11th Doctor is the one who forgets. Mm-hmm. So it made sense in that moment of the name of the Doctor for the Doctor to tell Clara, that's not the one, that's not me, that's the one who's not me. Mm-hmm. It's the one I don't talk about.
Right. Yeah, it does seem much more reasonable now, especially with that, with those sort of descriptions of 10 and 11, and I liked that. I thought that was a very good. I don't know. I loved all their interactions.
They were so great together.
Yeah. I don't know. I liked all the little criticisms that the Hurt Doctor had for 10 and 11, like holding their screwdrivers, like holding their screwdrivers like weapons, and things like that. Between like the way they were dressed and their phrases and things and stuff, and that was great.
Yeah, it's like he's a very classic Doctor, and it sort of reminds me of grumpy classic series fans who can't get behind the new series. Yeah. And he sort of represents that, and eventually comes around in the end to realize that the new Doctors, they're okay.
Right.
So it's which I think kind of makes sense in that this is very much the story that bridges the gap between the classic series and the new series.
Yeah, that's true. It does.
It's set between them.
Well, it is. Well, part of it is anyway. Well,
yeah. Well, part of it is, but this really does feel to me definitely more than it's a David Tennant story, and almost more than it's a Matt Smith story. This does feel like a John Hurt story to me. That's
true, because it kind of is from his perspective. I mean, the moment is really the reason that all these incarnations are brought together anyway.
Yeah.
Which is actually kind of interesting. It's interesting for a multitude of reasons, but it's kind of interesting that both the 10th Doctor and the 11th Doctor are separately having their own Zygon adventures.
But not really.
Because they're actually the same Zygons, just separated by several hundreds of years. And at first I thought that was kind of... Well, first of all, I thought that the Zygon sort of plot line was kind of... it felt kind of like secondary, like it didn't really feel like it was that important. Although, after thinking about it, it's actually probably entirely the result. It was probably affected in a large way by the moment. I mean, if the moment hadn't come along and taken 10 and 11 out of their respective timelines, I wonder what would have happened. I mean, would David Tennant?
Well, I mean, the thing is, if the moment hadn't done that, then Gallifrey would really have been destroyed, and presumably the Doctor would have been destroyed with it. Maybe, I don't know. So like, things would be quite different.
Well, I'm not so sure, because the moment does specifically say that the Doctor's punishment for doing that would be that he would survive it.
Okay, that's true.
I mean, the circumstances could be very different. So maybe he wouldn't have had his TARDIS anymore, or something like that. Who knows? Who knows?
But, I would think that the moment deliberately picked up an instance where the 10th Doctor and the 11th Doctor were on intersecting adventures and decided to show that to the John Hurt Doctor.
Yeah.
The War Doctor.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's interesting because it's also extra interesting because before any of that happens, actually, I guess this sort of makes a little bit more sense. It's not as far-fetched as I initially thought, but before the 11th Doctor encounters either one of his other incarnations, he's having flashbacks to that time, to Gallifrey, which starts because of Gallifrey, the painting, the Gallifrey Falls painting. So it's kind of weird how he's having these flashbacks, and then he's actually there, or he's actually meeting that version of himself, and that's interesting and it's kind of interesting how they did that. And I don't feel it's bad, but I just think it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I think it's because all of this is deliberately engineered by the moment.
Well, yes. I think that's part of the and that's kind of why I do like it, is because it was sort of, this whole thing feels like it was orchestrated by this sort of omniscient being. And I can get behind that. Like, I can get behind like an omniscient being coming along and just screwing everything up and putting people on like a path that they need to be on or something like that. And I'm totally cool with that. And I think that can make for a fun story, and it did here. So yeah, no, I'm completely 100% in favor of this and everything, pretty much everything that happens in it.
Me too.
Yeah. I really liked Billie Piper's performance.
Yeah, me too.
Playing the moment, not playing Rose or the Bad Wolf or whatever, although she calls herself Bad Wolf. But yeah, no, I thought that was kind of cool. I kind of liked seeing Billie Piper play a different character. Yeah.
I mean, this is another one of those things that, some people are angry about. And I can understand why someone might be angry about that.
Right.
But I just can't be angry about it.
No, right. Well, and especially because, I mean, there was the possibility that, this story was happening with David Tennant, or with the Doctor when he was with Rose, like when we found out that it was going to be David Tennant and Billie Piper. In some sense, it seemed reasonable to think that was going to be the case, and I mean, I don't think that would have been nearly as good as this, because I think that at this point in the 10th Doctor's life, he was kind of, I don't know, it makes much more sense that he would be, I don't know, like that he would be feeling like regretful at this stage than when he was just having fun with Rose or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, I think this fits pretty well into his character development overall.
Yeah.
It's a little bit strange to think that this is his second to last chronological adventure, and in the next chronological adventure, after he has this fun time with Matt Smith, even though he doesn't remember it, it's a little strange to imagine that he's crying in a cafe about, the new guy's gonna walk away, and then like he's so determined that he has to destroy the Time Lords once again by sending them back into hell, back into the Time War, Rassilon.
Right.
Which is actually kind of funny, because from the perspective of this story on Gallifrey, that's already happened, because the Gallifreyan general says, the High Council of the Time Lords is in their meeting, and then someone else says, well, damn the High Council, their plans have already failed. Which implies to me anyway that at this point, in another room somewhere on Gallifrey, Timothy Dalton and John Sim are standing around, and whatever happens after they get sent back into the Time War is happening right then and there. Well, not right then and there, but right then somewhere else.
Right. Huh, that's really funny to think about. I that was kind of in the back of my mind, but I didn't hear that line, and I didn't realize that was kind of the point at which that was set. That's actually really funny.
Although, actually, if that's the case, that kind of screws up chronology, because in the beginning of the Time Lord sequences of the End of Time Part 2, they say something like, the Doctor still has the moment, whereas
that's right.
the Doctor only steals the moment. I don't know, time travel, something.
Yeah, something about time travel, or maybe the High Council got advanced notice of the fact that the Doctor had stolen the moment. Like maybe word hadn't filtered down yet, through the chains of command.
Could be.
They didn't check to see if they'd gotten the memo on their psychic papers.
No. Speaking of the Time War, what did you think of the Time War? What we saw of it?
This kind of harkens back to like the Clone Wars. Yeah, I mean, I liked seeing I liked seeing bits of it, but I mean, I like the idea that it's largely left to the imagination.
I think what we did see, it looked pretty good.
Yeah.
And it looked really good in 3D too.
Oh, yeah.
Because I saw it in cinemas in 3D.
Oh, yeah.
But I like the notion that the Time War is just people firing lasers at one another, different colored lasers.
Right.
The good guys are one color and the bad guys are another color. To be honest, I don't remember whether that was actually the case in the episode, but in my reimagining, like in my conceptual imagining of how the episode portrayed the Time War, that's what I'm seeing. But I just thought that like the Time War should be weirder than that.
Well, right, you'd think wars are generally fought with guns and stuff, but this was a war that pretty right there in the title it's pretty clearly fought with time, and that would be pretty kind of a cool thing to explore, especially because when I think this was mostly during the Tennant era, if not exclusively during the Tennant era, they had a tendency to sort of or the 10th Doctor had a sort of tendency to talk about the Time War using nonsense words.
Yeah. And I always loved that.
Yeah.
The could have been king and his army of meanwhiles and never wers.
Yeah. Like
their child.
Right. Yeah. That stuff sounds really cool. And, who even knows what that does? Or, just, or what those things would be like. And that's really cool. And, yeah. So to see it being pretty much a traditional kind of war with guns and stuff, that's not terribly interesting.
I like to think that the could have been king is Peter Cushing, and his meanwhiles and never wheres are like, the Richard E. Grant Doctor, the Rowan Atkinson Doctor, etc. Alternate versions of the Doctor.
Yeah, I think that's probably it.
Like anything that can't be reconciled with Doctor Who continuity is one of the meanwhiles or never wheres.
Yeah, I think I think they could have really ran with that, but yeah.
Could have brought back Peter Cushing. Why wasn't Peter Cushing in the anniversary special is what I want to know.
Yeah, how about that?
Anyhow. So, David Tennant was good.
Yeah.
Matt Smith was good. I love John Hurt. John Hurt was really good.
Yeah, he was. Was he wearing, brown contacts?
I don't know.
Because I thought John Hurt had blue eyes.
I don't know. Couldn't tell you.
I guess I just know too much about actors' eyes and their eye color. Or maybe not enough, because I should know whether or not he was wearing colored contacts. No, it just looked like at one point he was kind of it kind of looked like he had, blue around the edges of his eyes, and then in the center was brown, and I was confused. But also I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure he does have blue eyes, because I'm pretty sure, because I want to say, in V for Vendetta, I'm pretty sure he had blue eyes. I mean, he could have been wearing contacts then, maybe.
I don't see eye color.
You're not prejudiced.
I really actually do not see eye color.
Well, no, it's not.
I don't pay attention to people's eye color, and I don't know what color. I mean, I've seen your face several times. I don't know what color eyes you have. I don't know what color eyes anyone has. I mean, if you ask me, if I'm not looking at someone's face right now, there's no chance I can tell you what color eyes they have.
Yeah, well, and I don't think I don't think it's something that people typically notice. I tend to notice it more with, in movies and TV shows, because usually they have close-ups of the actors' faces, and, sometimes they're just, standing around staring. And I don't have a tendency to, in my day-to-day life, stare at people who are staring at something else. But in a movie, sure. And no, there were some close-ups of John Hurt, and I'm pretty sure Well, and I know for sure that he had brown eyes in this, but I don't know. I was just curious if there was a reason for that. Well, because has it alternated? Because Matt Smith has blue eyes or some color that isn't brown. I'm pretty sure.
Sure, why not?
Hang on. I gotta look this up now.
I have absolutely no awareness of eye color.
Okay, well, I guess we're gonna have to. Why did I type Matt Smith? It worked.
Thanks, Google.
They look kind of blue. I'm gonna say they're blue. Anyway, all right. Well,
there goes got this figured out.
There goes that theory. I don't know. I was thinking maybe they alternated. Like, if Matt Smith's eyes were blue, I know that David Tennant's were brown. I'm pretty sure Christopher Eccleston's are blue. So maybe they're trying to alternate.
It's just funny to me because this is something that I don't think I've ever devoted any thought to anyone's eye color at any time.
Okay, well, so I guess this is just something that
I hear other people talk about eye color sometimes, and I'm just surprised that that's even a thing. Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, some people have earlobes that connect, and some people have earlobes that dangle. Some people have. Yeah, it just doesn't occur to me to even be interested in the color of a person's eyes. So,
well, to be fair, the eyes are supposed to be the windows, like, to the soul or whatever. So, if ears were the windows to the soul, or like the I don't know,
Christopher Eccleston would be a very soulful man.
Yes. So I think maybe that's why people pay attention to eyes, or at least that's what I'm gonna say.
Okay. What did you think about Queen Elizabeth?
I thought it was kind of, well, I mean, like, we had sort of solved the riddle of why Queen Elizabeth was so angry at the Doctor in the Shakespeare Code, at the end of the Shakespeare Code, basically with the end of time, but only in, like, a passing mention. I mean, we assumed that the Doctor had caused some kind of trouble in her time, and that he had married her, I think. That was pretty much stated, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, he says that he married her.
Oh yeah.
In the end of time,
yeah.
And then a couple references have been made to it since then.
Okay, yeah. So we knew pretty solidly that there was, there were shenanigans, and that was a big deal. But I don't know, it was nice. It's nice seeing it play out. And
well, it kind of seems in the episode that she's not, her plot isn't really given any closure. If they just sort of leave her, which of course is the point.
Well, right.
Because that's why she's. I mean, Shakespeare Code gives us closure.
Right.
But it still just seems kind of weird.
That's true. It is kind of weird.
I thought it was fine overall. I liked the joke that David Tennant could never tell the difference between. I mean, he kept thinking that it was a Zygon. It was really her.
Yeah. That was pretty funny.
And how about those Zygons?
Yeah, how about them?
I liked them. I thought they were good.
Yeah, I thought they were good too. At the resolution of the Zygon sort of subplot almost, that was basically, so they kind of just sat down and talked, which I mean is what happened, or is kind of what happened in the Hungry Earth / Cold Blood.
Only it went wrong there.
Right.
Whereas in this case, the general idea is that the Doctor makes them forget who's who.
Right. Yeah.
Who is a human and who's a Zygon, and it's supposed to be assumed that this is the resolution of the story, that in the 2 hours that they don't know who's who, they will come to a treaty that will definitely be fair, because no one knows who's a human and who's a Zygon, so no one knows whether they're supposed to be, backstabbing the humans or backstabbing the Zygons.
Right. Yeah, and that's very clever, and I liked that. I'm not sure what implication. I mean, like, I don't know, it's kind of weird because the Zygons are kind of, I guess it's kind of, in my mind, it was sort of built up like, oh, these Zygons are evil, they got to be stopped. And I mean, that's not necessarily true, I guess, thinking about it, because they don't really kill anyone. They kind of, and in fact, they need to keep the people they are disguised as alive. So,
Well, they want to eventually kill people. They want to take over the Earth.
So right.
They're planning something quite bad.
Well, okay, but the thing is that they might have changed their minds at some point. We don't know.
Right. I think the general point of the Zygon plot in this story is that it sort of gets you to the point where Kate is willing to blow up all of London in order to save the Earth.
Right.
Which, I mean, you as a viewer are supposed to be like, well, that's stupid. The Doctor's got to stop that. Which is supposed to mentally prepare you, I think, for the fact that, the Doctor has to stop the genocide on Gallifrey. He has to stop, the John Hurt Doctor from ending the Time War in that way.
Right.
He's gotta.
Yeah.
Because that's what he does. So I feel like the entire point of the Zygons was to get there.
Yeah, I could see that. And it does work, so I mean, you can't argue with results. Yeah, so I'm not terribly bothered by how that was handled. I just think that seems almost, I don't know. It seemed weird at the time, even though I understand what they were going for. Yeah, actually, I'm okay with that.
I liked it.
Yeah.
And to be perfectly honest, I just basically forgot about the Zygons. We moved on.
Well, yeah, that's kind of the thing. Despite what I said that they weren't secondary, they were secondary. I mean, that was definitely an adventure to have. Or it was basically an adventure for the doctors to have, to give them something to do while they sorted out their issues.
Yeah, there was no point at which like after we left that plot where, we went to the Time War and I was like, man, we have got to put this on hold for a sec and get back to those Zygons and those humans talking things over in an explodey bunker. I mean, we've got to get back to that. There was no point where I felt that way.
Well, right, yeah, and it was funny because after my first viewing, after it had ended, I didn't even really remember what happened with the Zygons, and I knew they were in it, and I knew that they were a threat at one point, but I didn't even really think about them. Yeah, they're definitely not the main problem of this story, and that's kind of interesting because. And I like that. I like that they're kind of secondary to the fact that, hey, it's all these doctors together, and there's this big issue that they have and with each other, and I like that it's I like that the episode is more doctor centric than stopping the bad guy centric.
Well, I think it almost could have been any bad guy.
Right.
Like, there's no, important theme of duality or something.
Right.
That runs through the episode. It's like, you just need, some bad guy that can have this planet take over the Earth, put itself in the painting to establish that, and then threaten to blow up the Earth, or cause unit to threaten to blow up the Earth.
Right.
It could have been that. It could work equally well with, the Cybermen or... I don't know, the Suntarans or whatever. Yes. But the reason it's the Zygons, I think, is because A, they're David Tennant's favorite, and B, they're beloved by fans but only ever appeared in one serial in the classic series, so it's kind of like an anniversary thing to bring them back.
Yeah. So, yeah, for those reasons, I'm completely happy to see them back. And that's fine. I'm completely fine with that. And I like that as opposed to, say, the Five Doctors where, it's all the doctors working together, and that's cool, but they don't really have an issue to work out for themselves. I mean, they're all pretty happy with themselves. And
yeah, basically it's all just, they're all trying to get to the center of the Death Zone, the tower, just because seems like the place to go.
Right. Right, and they've got to stop the master or whatever he's plotting, or actually, not really.
No, but they don't. He's not actually plotting anything.
No, he's not. So yeah, I liked this better than that by virtue of the fact that this was actually, as you might expect, it's more about the Doctor, and it's more about what the Doctor's going through, and a lot of introspection, if you will.
Yeah, well, yeah. There's a certain amount of people who are upset that Peter Davison, Colin Baker, and Sylvester McCoy, and Paul McGann weren't included in this episode. Mm-hmm. I'm not upset by their exclusion because I feel like that's not the kind of story this is.
Right.
This isn't the Five Doctors where it's just throw a party and invite everyone. Everything that's in this story has a reason to be in it.
No, right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, they could have tried to include the classic Doctors, but I don't think they would have. I think it would have just sort of dragged things down, possibly. And I mean, I would have loved to see them too. It's just that this story has a lot of things it has to cover, and there's a lot of things that are more important in this story than just that. And I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. This because it's trying to do something so very specific. I don't think there was probably even enough wiggle room to allow for that. I mean, it would have been nice, but I don't know.
I liked Peter Capaldi though.
Yeah.
I knew Moffat wouldn't be able to resist.
Well, I mean, like, was that? I'm trying to figure out. Was he cast when they were filming this, or?
Well, what Moffat says is that they didn't know it was going to be Peter Capaldi, but they knew by this point that Matt was leaving, and that they were going to have to cast a new Doctor.
Okay.
So they just slotted him in after the fact, which is perfectly fine with me.
Yeah, no. I thought that was really cool. Although, I find it a little confusing. I guess not really, but I find it kind of confusing because... No, actually, I don't. I don't know. That final scene, I don't really... I don't know how much sense it actually makes.
Where all the TARDISes show up?
Yeah.
Well, the moment gets them all.
Okay, all right.
The moment goes and fetches them all.
Okay.
I mean, even though it's time locked, the moment can break a time lock. So.
Well, that's true. So,
I guess it's necessary for the calculations at that moment to start with Hartnell, and they have to continue through. I guess I don't know if they have to continue through Matt Smith or through Peter Capaldi. I honestly don't know, but anyhow, yeah.
I could accept that they needed a total of 13 TARDISes in order to do it. I could actually see that. That's actually pretty reasonable. Yeah, let's go with that.
Sure.
Yeah. I guess I was just, in my mind, it was kind of weird because I guess I found it weird just within the context of the Five Doctors where they're making a big deal about, like, oh, they're taking all of the Doctor's incarnations and they're putting them in this death zone. And, obviously we know in 2013 that there weren't that saying five Doctors, that Five Doctors were not all of the Doctor's incarnations. He had a lot more after that. And so it seems weird, I guess, just within that context that, like, I kind of accept that as reality that, okay, well, at the time this aired, there were only 5 Doctors, so within the continuity of the show, getting all the Doctors means getting all 5 of them. And I don't know, at the point at which this is happening, there have been 11 or 12 Doctors, and so you'd think that would be the only ones that they could get. I know that none of this actually makes any sense.
Well, the thing is, at that time on Gallifrey, Peter Davison was the quote-unquote current Doctor. Right. What that means, I don't know.
Well,
like, in an absolute context where time travel exists. Whereas in this episode, the current Doctor is John Hurt.
Okay, that's true.
Like, we think of Matt Smith as the current Doctor, but this, I don't know. For me, this whole episode really does seem like a multi-Doctor story where the current Doctor meets some future Doctors who help him out.
That's fair. That's fair enough.
And so I think that Capaldi's inclusion kind of extends that a little bit. And then, they call in all the past guys just for good measure. And there's not a lot of archive footage that's integrated, but you get to see, Christopher Eccleston saying, "For my next trick."
Right. Yeah, so so I'm fine with that. And putting it in that context, that does make sense, that it's John Hurt getting help from the future. I can roll with that. That's fine. And that does make a bit more sense than the 5 Doctors. Just jumping back to the 9th Doctor, I was so sure, not that I was so sure, but I was so hopeful we were going to see the 9th Doctor in that final moment after John Hurt regenerates.
You can tell that his features are morphing into Christopher Eccleston.
Yeah.
You can just tell.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. I feel like there are lots of things that could have been included in an anniversary special.
Right.
But the only thing I think that this episode feels like it's really genuinely missing that should be there is, like, a minute of the 9th Doctor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, Christopher Eccleston would have had to come in for like 3 hours, sit in costume, get his costume made, get put on, get makeup done. Here's your script. You have 4 lines. Yeah, and I mean, I can kind of understand he didn't want to do that.
Right.
And it's also entirely possible. This is something that I've heard a lot of fans kind of assume this. I don't know if I assume it, but that this script was originally supposed to feature the 9th, 10th, and 11th Doctors, and then Eccleston refused, so Moffat had to come up with something, so Hurt is what he came up with.
I guess that does make sense, because you could... Well...
I don't know that I think that's really true.
Well, yeah.
It could be.
Yeah, oh, well, yes. Could certainly be true. I guess the only reason I don't think that makes sense, or why I don't think that would make sense, I mean, like, I totally get why, yeah, I could totally see John Hurt's role being done by the 9th Doctor, probably, or a role very similar to John Hurt's role by the 9th Doctor. But, if that were the case, that Stephen Moffat just failed to get Christopher Eccleston back, and so he had to think of a new character. I mean, I don't see why he couldn't have at least attempted to get Paul McGann to sort of play that role.
And maybe he did, but Paul McGann, he's a working actor, just like Christopher Eccleston.
Well, all right, that's fair.
He might have been like, yeah, I don't want to do that. I don't want to come in and shoot a big 76-minute special over the course of a couple weeks.
Right.
He might, but he came in and did his thing in an afternoon. I don't know, but I don't know. I just don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think what we have here works, though.
Oh no,
the John Hurt thing works. I think it's fun to say, hey, there was this other Doctor that we never knew about.
Yeah.
I don't care about the numbering, so whether this messes up whether the 9th Doctor is now the 10th Doctor. I mean, is something you can argue semantics about. It doesn't matter to me.
No, it does. It certainly doesn't matter with regard to just like saying like, yeah, he's the 9th Doctor. Yeah, he's the 10th Doctor. I mean, like, if that bothers you, I mean, okay, but yeah, I wouldn't even. I mean, the 9th Doctor is the 9th Doctor. I mean, it's even if he's really 10, it's.
The thing is, the 9th Doctor, the 10th Doctor, those are all like fan-made terms. They don't mean anything in the context of the show.
True.
Like, the Doctor doesn't introduce himself and say, "Hello, I'm the 11th Doctor."
That's true.
And even in multi-Doctor stories, they don't tend to refer to one another by, "All right, 5, you and 3 go team up and do this," whereas 1, 2, and 4 will do this. Like, they don't do that.
Right. That's right. Yeah, that's definitely true. And in some sense, that's why I don't know. I tend to find it very weird when the Doctor actually brings up the numbering in the show,
which he does from time to time.
He does, and I always find that weird because I mean I know it's happening, and I know that he knows it's happening, but I just feel like when he talks about it, it's just kind of weird that he's drawing attention to the fact that he's different. I don't know.
Well, I think Matt Smith does that more than any other Doctor has done.
Yeah, that's probably true.
And so, considering that the Matt Smith Doctor is the one who has decided to forget the John Hurt Doctor, that does make some amount of sense, I think.
Yeah, sure.
That he would call himself 11.
Yeah.
He lies about his age, so...
He does.
Why not lie about his number of regenerations he's had?
Why not just lie about everything?
The Doctor lies.
Yes, he does. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not bothered by any issues this might bring up in terms of numbering, because I mean, I'm still going to refer to the 9th Doctor as the 9th Doctor. But it does bring up the question of the regeneration limit, which I guess is that going to be? I wonder if that's going to be addressed in the Christmas special.
Well, I mean, there is it certainly seems like in the narrative we've kind of established that Matt Smith is the 12th incarnation.
Right.
Whatever he might call himself, or whatever the fans might call him. And then it has also been hinted by Moffat in interviews that you might want to take another look at Journey's End. Whether he's just trolling there, I don't know. Because he does that.
He does do that. Yeah, so I don't know. Well, yeah, certainly, because if yeah, if Journey's End counts as a regeneration, which, I mean, it could very well.
If Journey's End counts as a regeneration, then Donna is the first female Doctor.
That's true. That's true.
Even if she was only the first female Doctor for all of about 8 minutes.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, and I mean, it's never directly stated whether that used up a regeneration or not. And I mean, I don't think it's really been discussed I don't think the limit has been brought up at all in the actual show. I know that it was sort of jokingly brought up in the Sarah Jane Adventures.
Yeah, I don't think it has.
Yeah, so I mean, it's and that's almost kind of odd. I mean, I guess they could just be avoiding it because they know it's so close and they may not do anything with it, or at least that's what they could have been thinking, in 2007 or whatever.
Yeah, I have a feeling that Russell T Davies, he knew it wasn't going to be his issue to tackle, and so he decided not to make any reference to it and to let them cross that bridge when it came to it, because he probably didn't want to step on the next showrunner's toes.
Right.
In that way. And Stephen Moffat, he may well not have known that it was going to fall on him to write the 13th Doctor.
Right.
Whether that is Matt Smith or Peter Capaldi. But it is certainly one of those two.
Yeah.
So he may have thought, I'll do Matt Smith and he'll be 11, and then I'll do someone else and that'll be 12, and we'll be done. He might not have known that he was going to insert John Hurt. I think kind of like out of respect for the showrunners of the future, they have left that blank, but if it's Moffat's time to tackle it, then I'm guessing that he will make it a thing.
Yeah. He's certainly brought it closer because of the John Hurt Doctor. So I think it's definitely possible that could be a thing that he deals with. Yeah, he's definitely one regeneration closer no matter what, but he could be choosing to make him yet another regeneration closer, and in fact, upon it, if he chooses to count Journey's End, which, he could. Yeah, I certainly wouldn't put it past him, so, but yeah, I think he would definitely try and tackle that limit somehow.
Tom Baker was in this.
Tom Baker was in this. I could not believe it.
I was spoiled.
Oh, were you?
Tom Baker spoiled it.
Okay, well, no, all right.
He told the Huffington Post.
He did tell... Actually, I saw that. I thought he was lying.
I was... At that point, I wasn't sure whether I was hoping he was lying or not. Because I was 75% sure he was telling the truth. And then... And then when we got to the scene where all 13 TARDISes show up, I was about 50-50. I was thinking, well, he was kind of there, so maybe.
Right. At that point, he would not have been lying if he hadn't shown up for the rest of the episode. He wouldn't have been lying because archival footage of him was in the 50th, so he wasn't lying. Especially with how much he already associates the role of Doctor Who with himself. He probably thinks he's been in the past 50 years of Doctor Who. So I mean, no, I was the other way around. I was so sure he had lied, and he was just making shit up to get attention.
On the one hand, I wish he hadn't done that, but on the other hand, what better celebration of 50 years of Doctor Who than for Tom Baker to just do whatever he wants and ignore what the production team told him to do and just say, you know what, I'm the Doctor, you're not. I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna tell him.
Yeah. I think that is definitely, if nothing else, it's definitely in the spirit of Tom Baker. And I think, I think that was great. And really, why keep it a secret? I mean, come on.
Well, it would have been nice to be surprised, honestly.
Well,
I would have loved to be surprised.
Once again, I was surprised. So there.
Still, that was perfect. His appearance was perfect.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah, I loved everything about it, and it was kind of, it's kind of ambiguous, I guess.
Well, I think the clear implication is that it's a future version of the Doctor in like his, 584th regeneration or whatever, who has decided to retire and decided that for his retirement he wants to look like Tom Baker again.
Yeah, and I think, and I like that interpretation.
But then he goes and says, like, perhaps I'm you, or perhaps you're me. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
Which kind of muddies the waters and allows you to think whatever you want to think, I guess.
Right, you get to have your own headcanon or whatever. Yeah, and I'm all in favor of that. I like that ambiguity.
Well, he always wanted to do a Doctor Who thing where he never regenerated into Peter Davison, but settled down and retired instead.
Well, there you go.
So I'm sure in his mind that's what the character is.
Right, and I can totally see that. But yeah. No, I thought that was great.
I thought that was really great, and I think that's the best. That's one of the best things I think Stephen Moffat has ever done for Doctor Who.
Yeah.
He has created this like far more mysterious future for the Doctor, where it's like, what the hell is going on here? And in the process, made it possible for any Doctor to reappear on the show, no matter how old they are.
Yeah, that's true. Well, and that's that's entirely possible, because I think I think it's kind of funny that the whole point of regeneration started so that they could change actors, and it's funny that they sort of now also that it's funny they could flip the other way, that they want to bring actors back, and it's fun. So yeah, it's kind of funny that they're now using that same excuse as a means to bring back older Doctors. In a totally valid way, so because it's been established that, it's been established in several different points in time that the regeneration doesn't have to be random, that you can control it to some extent, and so of course, why wouldn't that be possible? Especially once the Doctor reaches a certain age, I imagine it's like achieving nirvana or something. He's probably mastered regeneration at that point, so he can look at however he likes to look.
It could be that like what he's doing here has gone beyond regeneration.
Yeah.
Like he's like some much more powerful and wise being who can take on whatever form he wants.
Yeah.
Or something along those lines. We just don't know.
Yeah, that would actually be pretty that would be really cool if the curator came back as, maybe not a recurring character, but he made other appearances, and he was like Peter Davison or Colin Baker, and he just kind of shifted in between all those. And
someday he's Matt Smith.
Yeah, exactly.
That's one of the things that I've always really loved about Stephen Moffat's vision of Doctor Who, ever since Silence in the Library, is that it's very much focused on the notion of the Doctor's future.
Yeah.
Whereas like Russell T Davies was all about bringing stuff back from the past. But most of what Stephen Moffat does is focused on like the notion that the Doctor has this, instead of him having this like long and storied past that has a lot of mystery in it, he has this incredible future that is far stranger than we could possibly imagine, where the Doctor can open the TARDIS with the snap of his fingers. And that the Doctor that we're seeing right now, despite the fact that we think of this as like a really old 50-year-old franchise, we're still seeing the Doctor's, Doctor in basically his infancy, is how I feel like Stephen Moffat, the way he has written the show, has kind of made me think of it in that way, which makes me love it even more.
Well, right, yeah, because I mean, when you're talking about the future, there's this kind of like hopeful implication that like there's all this great stuff that's happened, but there's all this great stuff that's yet to come, and it's kind of exciting because you get to think like, well, we're gonna see that someday, and that's something that and it's great, obviously to have the Doctor have this kind of rich past full of stuff, in history that stretches way back, and he's fought all these monsters and stuff, and all that could come back, and he would have to fight them again or something. But there's something to be said for hinting at this kind of bigger future, and I really like that as well. And I mean, I think it's safe to say Doctor Who's not going anywhere, at least for the time being. Well, I mean, it's going places, but I mean, it's not going away for the time being. And so, there is kind of this hopeful sense of the future and what the future might have in store. And yeah, I kind of like that perspective.
And well, Doctor Who isn't going to go anywhere, but sadly, the actors will.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Baker's not going to be around forever.
That's true.
And so it's not possible for Doctor Who to ever catch up to the future that Stephen Moffat has established here.
Right.
If indeed that's how one chooses to interpret it.
That's true.
So for the rest of Doctor Who history, it's always going to have this future.
That's true.
Where the Doctor decides he's going to look like Tom Baker and settles down and retires. You might at one point, I mean, I guess the show could move past that and say, we're going to skip ahead, and this is after all that Tom Baker stuff. But it never really needs to. It can always have this to look forward to.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of the thing that I Well, yeah, and that's kind of what I thought the time scar tissue or whatever at Trenzalore was supposed to be. And obviously that's kind of since been hinted that that's absolutely not the case. But that's kind of like what I wanted, is that like there's this thing that happens so far in the future we'll never get to it. But yeah, no, I love that sort of concept and that sort of wondrous proposition that there's just something out there that we no matter how far we go we'll just never get there. I find that really fascinating and interesting. I don't know, I love it.
Yeah. Also, Tom Baker was just really good. His performance was. It was very good, and that scene was like so well shot with like the tight close-ups, and
yeah,
it was. I just loved it.
Yeah, that was just fantastic. I think I've gone back and I've just rewatched that scene alone, just to go and watch it, and I love it every time I watch it.
Yeah, I watched the special on Saturday, and then I had a theatrical screening on Monday, and I decided in advance before I saw anything that I was only gonna watch it those times, like I wasn't gonna watch it between those two.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But I could not resist on Sunday. Like I just had to watch it again, and it was killing me like all day Sunday. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna watch the last 10 minutes. And so I started 10 minutes from the end, and I saw all the good stuff. Mm-hmm. Not I saw all the good stuff. There was a lot of good stuff, but I saw all that good stuff.
Right. You got the Capaldi cameo,
and
then the Tom Baker cameo. Yeah. The two bookends of living doctors, basically.
Yeah. I think we've had more doctors on screen this year than ever before.
Yeah.
In the show's history. I mean, even if you don't count archive footage cameos and stuff like that.
Right.
We've had the 8th Doctor,
mm-hmm.
we've had the 10th Doctor,
mm-hmm.
the 11th Doctor,
mm-hmm.
the 12th Doctor,
mm-hmm.
and a nebulous future Tom Baker Doctor.
Yeah, and that's pretty cool. And I mean, there's no reason why they can't do more of that stuff. But yeah, no, that's kind of, and it's kind of neat and pretty fitting that this is all happening in the 50th year. Because I mean, what better time to do all this kind of crazy stuff that just goes all over the place?
Yeah, I've just been feeling so good about Doctor Who recently,
right?
Like with that and with Adventure in Space and Time, which we're not going to talk about today,
right?
And the missing episode recoveries,
yeah,
and there's just so much,
yeah,
so much greatness has happened in this anniversary year.
Yeah,
like I'm just like on a high from it.
Yeah, it's really been a really great year. It's funny. I mean, especially with the missing episodes, which is almost coincidental. Although I guess I guess it could be that they wanted to rush those out so that they would be releasing them in the anniversary year. But yeah, no, it has been a really great year for Doctor Who fans.
Yep. So is there anything you disliked about this this special? Because I have identified 6 flaws.
Okay.
The 6 flaws.
Okay. I mean, I guess no. I guess there really wasn't anything. I mean, like the stuff that I've talked about weren't really complaints, but they were the closest things I had to complaints. Although, I will say that there was John Hurt made such a big deal about the sonic screwdriver not being a weapon, and then he totally uses it as a weapon alongside Matt Smith and David Tennant when they're busting out of the painting.
Oh, that's because he sort of comes.
It's a weapon.
It's character development.
It's a weapon.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's character development.
Is it development?
Yes.
How is it development?
Because this is where he got the idea to use it as a weapon.
He got it from himself.
Yes.
Stephen Moffat, you can't do that again.
He will never stop doing it. He will never stop doing that.
Okay, fine. All right. Okay, fine.
All right, do you want to hear the 6 flaws in this episode?
I want to hear the 6 flaws.
They're all flaws, and there are no more flaws than this.
Okay.
These are all of them.
Okay.
All right, 1, Eccleston isn't in it.
Okay, yeah, fair.
Okay. 2, when the doctors pop out of the painting and into the Black Archive, the slow motion effect is horrible.
True.
It's terrible.
Yes, I agree.
Okay. 3, it would be way better if all 13 doctors had to come to a consensus together about whether or not they wanted to destroy Gallifrey, and only Capaldi knew what they were going to do.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is technically a flaw as much as it's like an alternate universe fan fiction, but I'm definitely right.
Yeah, no, I think that would have been neater.
You couldn't possibly do that, obviously, but
no.
It would be great. Okay.
They could have done it with green screen.
Okay. Yeah, they totally could have. Okay, anyway. So the 4th flaw.
Okay.
During the wedding scene, David Tennant's collar is all messed up in one shot, but it's fine in the next one. It's really sloppy continuity.
Okay.
All right. Number 5, the Time War being too generic sci-fi laser pew pew. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and the 6th flaw, how did they escape the Doctor's grave?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
At the end of The Name of the Doctor, how did they get out?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. They don't really yeah, that's not really covered, and I don't really know how much. They're not even really clear on how much time has passed since the events of that.
It's also not incredibly clear to me why Clara's a teacher now.
Yeah.
I mean, but she is teaching at the school from An Unearthly Child.
Right.
And Ian is evidently the head of the Board of Governors.
Yeah, it would have been cool to see him.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd call that necessarily a flaw, but it would have been cool. What I wanted to see was have him be in it and have Bernard Cribbins be in it, and they're friends, but they don't know. They don't know. Like, I had this plotted out in my mind. They're friends, but they don't know. And then in Ian's last story, the Doctor gives him this thing called a TARDIS magnet, which guides the way to the TARDIS.
Okay.
And he never gives it back. It's just Ian still has it, presumably. So like they'd be like sitting together, swapping stories about their time in the military because they were both in the military at around the same time. And then like the TARDIS magnet goes off, and then obviously that has nothing to do with what goes on in this episode. So it was like you couldn't have worked that into this story, but that was like something I really wanted to happen in the 50th anniversary special. But then again, this is like my alternate universe fan fiction. It's not like a flaw in the story. It's
right.
It's me making up a better story.
Right,
it's
and
better.
Right, and that's the thing that can still happen. We don't know for sure that Bernard Cribbins and Ian aren't friends. We don't know any of that.
We just don't know.
We don't.
I mean, William Russell, who plays Ian, was in An Adventure in Space and Time, though.
Right.
Which we're not talking about today.
No, we're not.
So, I thought Clara was kind of, I don't know. I feel like the follow up on the consequences of what she did in that episode in The Name of the Doctor aren't really there.
Right.
So I guess that's kind of a flaw. Like,
yeah, you'd think she'd be sort of like all knowledgeable about the Doctor and everything he's ever done.
Yeah, but I mean, it's referenced the fact that she met the 10th Doctor.
Right.
She knows these guys. She's seen them before, but I don't know. Like that doesn't seem to have consequences. I kind of think like her characterization isn't all that interesting. Like, she doesn't do anything interesting in this. I mean, she does, like, she's the person who cries and tells the Doctor that he can't destroy Gallifrey. But pretty much any companion could have done that.
Well, right. Yeah, it kind of seemed more like something that you might expect in a Russell T Davies story, where, like, the companion's upset at something the Doctor's doing, and the Doctor realizes how horrible he's being, or something like that. Yeah, yeah, I don't know. I mean, in some sense, I wasn't really expecting much from Clara, because I figured this was going to be something focusing more on the Doctor, and stuff was going to be going on with him, and I guess I wasn't really expecting there to be anything about Clara, but it is weird that the last thing that happened to Clara was she was inside the Doctor's time stream trying to save him or whatever, and then the Doctor comes and like plucks her back out again, and then she's apparently perfectly normal now and a teacher. So I don't know. I feel like a lot of this was kind of I think Series 7 was kind of, well, I mean, of course, it was specifically designed to lead up to this. And I mean, I know that they, certainly with the Pons leaving, they really didn't have a whole lot of wiggle room for things to do with Clara. And this kind of all had to be sort of one right, like just setting this up like one right after the next and stuff like that. You know, they only had like 6 or 7 episodes to work with, I think. So in that sense, I think it's kind of, I don't know. It seems like Clara's development by and large has been kind of rushed. And I mean, I think that sort of ends up here where we're not really sure what's going on with her. And so yeah, I don't know if they're ever going to sort that out.
Yeah, I think I just think she's a little bit boring, personally.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Like I was kind of giving her the benefit of the doubt for a while in Series 7, and I really liked, how her story wrapped up in The Name of the Doctor. I thought that was a fitting end to that storyline. Mm-hmm. But we're just sort of left with, not all that much.
Right. Yeah. She's kind of just a companion now.
But this was a story all about the Doctor.
Yeah.
So it could be that, we'll see more from her in the Christmas special or in Series 8 that will redeem her, or if not like redeem her, I guess that's not, but like will sort of change my perception of her.
Yeah. It's definitely possible.
I liked Unit.
Yeah.
Unit was good.
Yeah.
I liked seeing Kate Stewart again.
Yeah.
I liked Osgood, I think her name is, the lady with the inhaler and the Tom Baker scarf.
I didn't catch her name. That was
I honestly do not think it was mentioned in dialogue at any point. But I gleaned it from the Wikipedia page or something.
Huh, that's interesting.
Via the credits, basically.
Right.
Interestingly enough, something I thought kind of weird is that Kate keeps talking on the phone to Malcolm. She keeps saying something to Malcolm. Like, whenever she's calling someone, it's always Malcolm, who is from Planet of the Dead.
Oh, yeah.
He's the Welsh guy who loves the Doctor. I thought that was kind of strange.
Yeah.
Like, well, why are they doing that?
Yeah, are they going to bring him back?
Could be.
That'd be interesting.
I don't know whether it would be interesting.
I'm going to say it would be interesting.
I like the fact that pigeons have batteries.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's another Unit dating joke as well.
Oh, is there? I missed it.
Yeah, Kate says something about like, oh, get me the file on Cromer, 1970s or 1980s, depending on the dating protocol.
But
which implies not only is the date uncertain, but it is actually both, depending upon some external factor. which that's Doctor Who.
That really is. That is definitely Doctor Who.
It's just both. So I like seeing it in 3D.
Yeah, I was gonna ask how was it? Because I was trying to. Well, actually, I got distracted, and so that ultimately it didn't happen. But I went in with the intention of looking at it to try and think of what would look good in 3D. But how did it look in 3D?
It looked pretty good in 3D. I think I'm starting to like 3D more than I used to like it because of my use of the Nintendo 3DS.
Right.
But the scene where she rides the motorcycle into the TARDIS, that looks good. The scene where the TARDIS is flying by a helicopter, that looks good. And mostly my awareness of 3D tends to, peak early and then trail off. Mm-hmm. And then it sort of blends into my awareness of the episode.
Right.
So I didn't really notice it so much later in the episode, but a lot of the big early stuff looked really good.
Huh.
Some things that don't look as good is like when the camera does like a rack focus from one thing in the background that's out of focus and then focuses toward it. Like, for instance, there's a shot where, John Hurt and Billy Piper are next to one another and we see them in profile and it's focusing on John Hurt, and then it, rack focuses that it's focusing on Billy Piper, and that just doesn't make sense in 3D.
Right.
I guess it just looks really weird in 3D.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I've noticed that in the past with 3D is because, in 2D, you know what the camera is supposed to be focusing on, but I mean with 3D, it should be your choice of what you focus on. I mean, I know that camera lenses don't work that way. I mean, you can sort of make a composite from two different shots where both things are in focus, but it's not how actual vision works.
Yeah, I mean, the point of a rack focus is it's sort of to simulate the effect of changing the focal length of your own human vision, whereas that's not what's happening when you're watching a 3D movie.
Right.
I mean, that's already simulated in the 3D effect, and so now it just looks like Billie Piper's all blurry, and now she's not all blurry.
Right.
It's just like a meaningless thing. It just doesn't mean anything anymore. So it's like,
right.
It's just very strange.
Yeah, that would be strange.
There was a little scene before with Strax telling you about theater etiquette.
Oh, really?
And he's like saying things about like, this human attempted to open a communications protocol during the show. And it's like this guy who's was texting on a phone, and now he's like locked up and being treated as a prisoner. Things like that. And then there's a scene where Matt Smith and David Tennant turn on the 3D with their sonic screwdrivers. And then Matt Smith's talking about like, Matt Smith makes a joke about how David Tennant looks older now. And it's like all the wrinkles look more noticeable in 3D, so be ready for that. And then David Tennant makes a joke about 3D chin.
That's fun.
So that was fun. And the show started 20 minutes after it was supposed to. So, and during those 20 minutes, it had like Doctor Who stuff on the screen, like trivia questions and like facts about the classic series. That I was like wondering what the people in the audience were making of it. Because like I'm sure most of the people in that audience were probably people who were not that familiar with the classic series as compared to the new series.
Right.
Who probably didn't really care all that much about Colin Baker's coat and stuff like that. Yeah.
Wait, what did they say about Colin Baker's coat? I want to know.
No, I don't know. It just had these like basically what it was like a big image would appear on the screen, and there would be like a paragraph or two of text about like I honestly don't remember anything in particular, but there was like this one that was dealing with Omega, who is a villain from the Three Doctors and also appeared in the Fifth Doctor story, The Arc of Infinity, and it's talking about like Omega is a villain who blah 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 blah, and it's like Omega is a villain who's never appeared in the new series and who most of the people in this theater have probably never heard of. So I just can't imagine that this is all that engaging to anyone. Like, there's no one here who's always wondered about Omega. Like, can you give me a bit more context on Omega?
Right. Like, and especially like, and it's not like we have the internet or anything where these things are researchable at will. Obviously you wait until some big 50th anniversary event comes along where they will be showing screenings in theaters where they'll be showing a slideshow beforehand, showing you random factoids. And then you can hope for information that way. So yeah, either you already knew all this stuff, or you never once in your life had a desire to find out this stuff.
I think that's definitely true in America. It might be a little less true in the UK, where I think there's more background awareness of Doctor Who's 50-year history.
Right.
But here, that's definitely not the case.
Yeah.
With all the trivia questions too, I mean, I knew the answer to all but one of them, and one of them was a question about like what Doctor Who toy does Craig Ferguson always have on his desk, which isn't really a Doctor Who trivia question, but I didn't know it was a TARDIS. But yeah, like the questions were all things like Peter Capaldi, who's going to play the Doctor, appeared in the episode The Fires of Pompeii. Which other Doctor appeared in the show before he was the Doctor? And everyone in the theater, people in the theater were yelling out, Amy Pond, which means that they didn't finish reading the question. They just read the first sentence and assumed, they're asking what other future Doctor Who star was in that episode. But no, it was asking them what Doctor appeared in the show before they were the Doctor, and the answer to that, I mean, I obviously, like, there's a part of me that's like, yes, it's Colin Baker, but I'm not going to yell out, hey, everyone, no, you're wrong. You misunderstood the question. It's actually Colin Baker. You got to reread the question, guy. Like, I wasn't going to yell that out to a crowded theater. So I was just sitting there, and like people were scratching their heads, like, which of these bands did appear in Doctor Who in the classic series? And someone's like, was it The Who? That would be funny. No, I think it was the Kinks. And I'm like, no, the Beatles. It was the Beatles. They appeared in The Chase. But I'm not going to, like, tell them, like, no. I'm not going to put them out of their misery. Like, it was just very strange to me. Like, yeah.
So, So these were mostly questions that had answers that you required a knowledge of the classic series.
I wouldn't say necessarily mostly. I'd say about half and half.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that must have been very interesting.
It was. I liked seeing, little kids with tweed jackets and fezzes. Did a lot of that there. Because I've never been to a Doctor Who convention, so I'd never really gotten to sort of see so many, like, Doctor Who people in one place.
Right, yeah. It sounds like that would be fun.
It was pretty fun. And apparently the theatrical showings did really well.
Oh, really?
In the UK, I think it was the number 3 movie for the weekend.
Oh, wow.
Based solely on the Saturday screenings. They didn't include the Sunday or Monday screenings in that for some reason.
Huh.
So it's this show that's available for free on TV or on the internet. And it's still, it lost to Catching Fire and Gravity.
Wow.
And in the U.S., I think on Monday, which granted is not a huge movie night,
right?
On Monday night, it was second to Catching Fire.
Wow.
Probably a quite distant second, but still.
Yeah. Wow.
And I think that's in terms of money made.
Yeah.
As opposed to in terms of overall attendance, because the tickets were a little bit expensive.
Huh. That's kind of neat.
So maybe they'll look at that and decide, hey, we should make a Doctor Who movie for real.
Well, it's possible.
It is possible. It's always possible.
It'd be cool if they made like an 8th Doctor movie again.
They already did that.
I know, but I want them to do it again.
Well, I kind of feel like previous to like 2 weeks ago, I would have said, yeah, that's got to happen. We got to do that. But I feel like we've gotten closure on the 8th Doctor now.
I guess so.
And it's not that I never want to see that guy back. It's just that I don't feel like there's this chasm anymore.
That's true. Yeah, that's another nice thing Stephen Moffat has done. He's sort of given us closure on the 8th Doctor. We know where the 8th Doctor winds up, even if we don't know everything about his adventures.
No, we don't. And even the adventures that we have in the novels and the comics and the audios, we don't know how they fit together at all.
Yeah.
Because there's this entirely separate destruction of Gallifrey that exists in the novels. So how we reconcile that, I don't know. Are we supposed to reconcile that? I don't know.
I can't tell you.
And no one can.